Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Thursday evening / Friday morning edition of the Yard. I'm trying to get ahead of the game a little bit. I had some time this evening. It's been a very, very busy day. I haven't even written anything on the site today, but thankfully I got a good crew, and I think we've had 11 stories so far today. You never know. We'll have availability report a little bit later. But yeah, it helps to have an army of folks to help, for sure. And sometimes you just got to get away and take care of business. And I want to thank everybody that came out to the Winston County Library today. I do enjoy doing those. Or a lot of people say, well, Steve, you sold about a dozen books. But, those library events are very important to those people and to those libraries. And I don't ever want to feel like that I'm too good to go down to that kind of stuff. And the Winston County Library has been so good to me over the years when I was just starting out in that industry. And so, yeah, we make the trip down there, come back, had a pretty important meeting this afternoon, got a lot of things accomplished, and now here we are. And I thought, you know what? Instead of writing something else, let me go ahead and get ahead of the game. That way you guys will have all Friday morning and afternoon to enjoy the show rather than getting it up, maybe a little bit too late for you guys to enjoy the Alabama baseball preview. So we're going to spend a little time here in our first segment kind of breaking down what's made Alabama tick so far and kind of look ahead to the weekend. Some more portal news, obviously. It's crazy. It is. But, if you're like me, I'm just kind of hanging on. Hanging on, and we'll see where things go. It's true. Hey, let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of the show. We love Bulldog Burger Company. We do. We love them. We don't just like them. And if we do like them, we like them more than a friend. It's true. I get so excited when I get to go there because I know when I put my feet under their table that I'm going to have a dining experience. I'm not just going to eat. I'm going to go in there and be well taken care of by a very well-trained staff in a great atmosphere and environment. I'm going to get a great meal at a great price. I'm going to get great service. I can't say that about every place, but I can certainly say it about Bulldog Burger Company. Next time you're in town or on the way to town, go by and check them out. You'll be glad you did. If you ask your kids, hey, we're heading up to Starkville, where would you like to eat? Well, Bulldog Burger Company. Yeah, it's true. That's going to be their restaurant of choice. And it's not just because of the burgers, it's everything else. I like to get the onion rings when I do get a burger. Sometimes I get the fries, but sometimes I just like a great quality onion ring. And I'm not a big onion guy, but I do like onion rings. It's kind of a weird thing, but the uncooked onions are not my friend. So you can have whatever side you want, but I'm feeling the freshman 15. I think that's what I'm going to get my next visit. Maybe you will try that too. If you're a newbie to Bulldog Burger Company, I encourage you to start with the Bulldog. And maybe if you're not feeling a burger, maybe that BLT salad, I like it grilled. You may like it fried. I'm not judging you. I do douse mine in ranch dressing. It's true. But yeah, I have the spring rolls as my appetizer because I need all the help I can get to be better looking. It is the more that I age, the more spring rolls I have to eat. So you take part in that too. 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Rich and Floyd area. Have the chocolate shake to go, and you can ride that ride home with a smile. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. Okay, let's take a look at Alabama. I think it's fair to say that Alabama may be doing a little bit better than people expected. And I'll be the first to admit that. I think that they are a little bit better than I expected. I think Rob has done a good job there, Rob Vaughn, the coach. Second-year coach, showed up from Maryland. And Greg Byrne, it's kind of the Greg Byrne model, right? Is to go get the ascending coach. And so Vaughn had a great run at Maryland. He gets a job at Alabama. And let's just kind of say it for what it is. The Alabama baseball job is not really a premier job in the SEC. It is a good job, but it's not on the level of LSU or Mississippi State or Arkansas, Florida. But what's interesting is, Alabama, for a while there, back in the Gorilla Ball era, Alabama was kind of right there just behind LSU, and at times maybe on par with Mississippi State. Jim Wells did a good job there, but the reality of it is they don't have a ton of recent baseball tradition. Now, it used to be a much different scenario. Back in the Duty Noble days, in 1920s, 30s, it was basically Alabama and Mississippi State most years. But in recent years, there hasn't been a ton of tradition. And let's talk about that just a little bit here. And some of that, too, is because, Alabama has, committed so many resources over the years to football. And, baseball, for a long time, like Alabama had one of the more pedestrian stadiums in the conference. But Alabama has played for the national championship twice. They've lost both times in 83 and 97. But if you look at that stretch there, like the early 2000s, like for like 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, and 2000, Alabama was right there. They went to Omaha in 96, 97, and 99. Of course, again, that's the Gorilla Ball era, right, when LSU was kind of making their big run to the national stage. And so while Alabama made it to Omaha, they didn't do much when they got there outside of that 97 year. So all that understood, Alabama has not been to Omaha in 26 seasons. Imagine that happening here at Mississippi State, right? We would be up in arms. And so it's a different dynamic there. They haven't won a regional since 23. We haven't won one since 21. But the one in 23 was their first since 2010. And so, again, not a lot of recent success. And so Byrne goes out and gets Rob Vaughn. And they're a much better program. Now, they weren't great last year. Some people out there kind of suggest, and we had this discussion recently too. It's like, hey, what's going on with Alabama? How did they get so good so quickly? Well, they really didn't. And here's what I'll take you through that. Okay, we talk about that. The 2010s, the last time Mitch Gaspard was the coach. He had first year head coached it. They go 42 and 25. Do you know how many years they've had 40-plus win seasons since then? We'll pause for dramatic effect. It was one. It was in 23. Yeah, it was in 23 when they fired Bohannon and Jason Jackson, the pitching coach there, who's done a tremendous job over the years. He let them. They got hot right after he left. And then last year, Rob Vaughn's first year, they go 33 and 24, and then 13 and 17 in the conference. And Alabama got off to a great start last year in SEC play. And everybody thought, hey, well, look at this. And, hey, I'm not taking anything away from that staff. But it was pretty evident to me that Alabama kind of benefited from the fact that they had a pretty light SEC schedule to start with. And maybe that's not a fair thing to say. Tennessee kind of stumbled out of the gate. So Alabama wins those two of the first three against Tennessee. And then they get swept by Georgia in Athens. And then they bounce back and they win 2 out of 3 against South Carolina, who was ranked 10th, and that seems kind of silly in hindsight, right? And then they get swept by Kentucky. And they come to Mississippi State. They win 2 against Arkansas, and everybody thought, okay, they've righted the ship. Then they lose 2 out of 3 to A&M. And so you win that series early on against Tennessee, and it kind of, everybody's like, Alabama's back. And they come to Mississippi State, and they lose 2 out of 3. And, we still felt like we should have swept that thing. We let Sunday kind of get away from us a little bit. It's true. But, but after that, they just kind of, they avoided getting swept. and they won some series they were expected to win. But it wasn't maybe the year I think that some people remember. I think some people say, hey, look, this is an Alabama team that, is playing at an extremely high level. They finished 9 games over 500 last year, 33-24. They get into the postseason, they go 0-3. Kind of ran out of juice, and that's an important part of things too. I mean, they go to Hoover. They're one and done in Hoover as South Carolina gets them 10-5. They end up at the Tallahassee Regional at Florida State. And in a 2-3 game, they lose to Central Florida. And then they're eliminated in the loser's bracket game 4-0 by Stetson. So a good first season, and I think they've built upon that this year. And so let's kind of go back and just kind of see how they got here this year. They open up with a sweep over Bradley. I know Bradley is a pretty solid mid-major in men's basketball. Maybe not so much in baseball. Are you big Bradley baseball fans? You keep up with them at all? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I don't know. Guys, they're 4-24 this year. Yeah, 4-24. And so, everybody plays a couple of non-conference series just to kind of get your legs under you, and that was the case for Alabama early. And they sweep those, as they should. Double-digit runs in every game, 10-6, 19-3, and 11-4 in a mercy rule game. Then they mercy rule Middle Tennessee. Then they mercy rule Alabama State. Everybody's like, man, look at this Alabama offense. And it is very good. Don't get me wrong. But some of that's a quality competition. To me, the eye-raising weekend about Alabama baseball happened in Jacksonville, Florida at the Jacksonville Classic. Now, they take care of Coastal Carolina, as Rob Vaughn said, a very miserable Friday night. It was cold, and you don't ever think about like Jacksonville, Florida, or Florida being cold, but it is. They do have seasons down there. But, Coastal, of course, wins an AFL championship back in 2016, the year that we should have won it. We got a lot of those stories, don't we? We do. We got a lot of those stories where we feel like, hey, we were the best team in the country. We should have won an AFL championship, and then we didn't. But have you kept up with Coastal this year? I don't know. Maybe you have. But it's interesting. Pretty good program. 24-9 right now. And so that's a quality win, and that'll be an RPI climbing opportunity for Alabama because Coastal's going to be really good in their league, as you'd expect. Well, then you get NC State. You think, okay, well, this is where the air gets let out of the balloon, playing the number 12 ranked Wolfpack. I mean, Elliott Avent, those guys do a great job at NC State. They're one of those programs, too, that while I don't have a personal allegiance to them at all, I respect them so much because they're kind of our ACC counterparts. That's how it feels to me. And, of course, in Omaha back in 21, getting a chance to kind of be around those guys and everything, that's kind of how it feels. It's like, hey, this is a program a lot like us. Maybe they haven't won as much as us, but you feel like, hey, these guys are similar in value structure. Wolfpack 22-11 this year. 7-5 in the ACC. They're going to be in the mix for the postseason. They always are. But to me, that was an important win. I thought, you know what, hey, anytime you beat a program the caliber of NC State, non-conference or not, outstanding. Rob points to the Ohio State game, and if you read the one-on-one interview I had with him yesterday at genespage.com, and you still can, he said, I hate to call it a turning point, but this kind of was a turning point. And I think it's one of those watershed moments where you kind of find out who you really are. Ohio State is up 10-0 in this game in the fourth inning, and Alabama shuts them out the rest of the way and wins the game 12-10. And then all of a sudden there becomes this belief that's cultivated that, hey, we are expected to win. No matter how far we get down, we can always come back. That's an incredible trait for a team to have. And then they go right back to winning again. I mean, just keep rolling on here. 20-11 against Jacksonville State. North Dakota State comes in. A team that has played a lot in the SEC, because of the fact of territory, right? I mean, you're not going to go play baseball in North Dakota in February and March. They're 10-18 this year. And, it's so interesting. They made the big tour, Dallas Baptist and Alabama and LSU, Tulane, Oklahoma State. There's just, and I commend them for going on the road and playing such good competition. But I don't know if that's one of those things where anybody said, Alabama really is good because they beat North Dakota State. It's not the reality that I think any of us expect. Nobody looks at North Dakota State as a measuring stick in college baseball. Alabama then gets Jacksonville State 11-1. They take down Troy in a midweek game 3-1. Then they got Presbyterian coming in. And they handle them pretty well until they get into Sunday. Mercy rule on Friday, mercy rule on Saturday, and then 11-8 loss on Sunday. And those are RPI killers right there. I mean, it truly is. But at least you win the series. They go to UAB the following Tuesday, much like we did, and they beat UAB 6-3. And it's an interesting place to go play. The field is great at UAB. Not a lot of seating, and they're not going to go expand the grandstand just because we go over there once every couple of years. But it was kind of a loud weekend, even though A&M was struggling. Alabama goes to College Station, and they sweep Texas A&M when Texas A&M was really struggling. Now they got Sorrell back, had a really good weekend last weekend, beating Tennessee, and be an interesting weekend with South Carolina coming in. We're pulling for South Carolina, but I don't know if I want to play A&M right now. All of a sudden they got one of their big dogs back, which kind of changes the composition of the lineup. And now you've gone up and beat the number one team in the country in their own ballpark. Those guys at College Station are fired up, man. But Alabama gets them early when they're struggling. Cold weather. And the games were somewhat competitive. But 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. And 6-4, 6-2, 2-0. But in a 2-0 game on a Sunday, you don't expect that. But they count the same, right? Those 3 wins count the same no matter when they come. Well, then they beat South Alabama, again, 10 innings. And they find a way to get it done late, walk it off late. Then you go to Tennessee, and you win that game. 6-5. Excuse me, that game was at home. But you win 6-5 there. And then all of a sudden, people are like, Alabama is a lot better than we thought. They're 22-1 at this point, and 4-0 in SEC play. And everybody kind of starts getting on the wagon a little bit. And I'll be honest with you, after that I'm thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe these guys are better than we thought. Maybe Tennessee's not as good as we thought. Then Tennessee comes back and wins the next 2, 10-7, 9-2. And then they get North Alabama and Huntsville at Toyota Field, 4-3. And again, midweeks are weird, right? People think it just happens to us. But like if we beat North Alabama 4-3, that you guys would be like, are you kidding me? Why are we struggling with North Alabama? Well, Alabama struggled with North Alabama. Matter of fact, Alabama had to walk it off in the 9th inning. And again, people are only kind of acutely aware of what happens here because that's who you cheer for, right? And these scores sometimes just kind of, they miss you. Then Oklahoma goes to Tuscaloosa. And I didn't think Oklahoma would have the pitching, and they don't. But Alabama gets it, 8-6 and loses the middle game 6-5, and they win the rubber match 8-6 on Sunday. And it's so interesting again here. It really wasn't much of a game until it got late. Alabama's up in this ball game early. It's 8-1 in the 4th. And then Oklahoma kind of starts chipping away. They make it 8-6 and just couldn't get it going there in the 9th. But so Alabama takes the series. And I think we all feel like that too, that Oklahoma is not great. They're good, not great. And a series that we look back and say, you know what, we should have won that thing. Alabama then takes care of Samford on April Fool's Day. I don't know if you've kept up with Samford baseball since we played them. But this, again, was really not much of a game early. And then the Alabama bullpen kind of blows up late. Alabama is up 10-2 in this ball game into the 7th inning. And Samford scored 7 in the 7th to make it a 10-9 game. And then Alabama gets a run back in the 8th, and they win it 11-9. And so, again, I think it's one of these things where, late game heroics have been a part of the Alabama experience so far. And when I think about our ability, sometimes inability to close games, I think it's going to boil down to that. I think a lot of times, that's one of those things that I think about when I think about this matchup. Do we go into this thing expecting to win? Because Alabama is going to go into this thing expecting to win because they've got proof positive in their resume that, hey, we can get the big hit late. We have not always had that this year. Now, in recent games, we've been able to kind of get separation in those middle innings. But there have been other times this year, and that was the lament of the season, right? Is that we couldn't get the big hit late. And so, what happens in that scenario if it boils down to that? Whoever gets the big hit late is going to win. Well, those scenarios probably favor Alabama. So we got to find a way to get some separation, much like Auburn did last Friday. Now, what's interesting about the Friday start, Zane Adams has been starting for them on Fridays kind of throughout the season. And let me see here. Am I looking at the wrong game? Maybe I'm wrong here. Let me look here. Yeah, so I think I'm looking at the wrong game. All right, so Friday, April 7th. Let's see here. Yeah, Zane Adams pitched in that game. And I had somebody tell me that his velo was down a few ticks, much to the point where you felt like this may be a bit of a problem. And so we'll see what happens this week. But, guys, Alabama jumps on him early. And as Rob Vaughn says, he gives up 2 runs. He has a chance to get out of it. And then has a changeup, stay up in his zone. He gets elevated out into the gap, 2 more runs score. And they have to go get him there in the second. And so Zane Adams goes 1 inning pitched in that ball game, allowed 8 hits, 6 runs, a walk, and didn't strike out anybody. Retired just 3 hitters. He faced 12. And so 9 of the 12 get on base, and 6 of them score. And those are the things you begin to kind of think about in this aspect. Are we going to get the Zane Adams that Auburn got last week? Is there a real issue here? We'll find out pretty soon. But that's one of those things you've got to consider, as you kind of begin to work through all of this stuff with this Alabama team. And Auburn jumped all over them and mercy ruled Alabama 10-0 in 7 innings to really jump ahead in that series. Riley Quick starts game 2, and it's a 6-5 ball game. And Quick did not factor in the decision. It was his first start back from that blood blister. And much to the coach's credit, he goes, you know what, it probably bothered him more than he let on because he's a competitor. We recruited him in football and thought we were going to get him. And then he opts for Alabama baseball. And I remember his dad saying, hey, it's Alabama. I could understand Alabama football. But anyway, you grow up in that state, the chance to wear the crimson. It's a difficult thing to turn down. But Quick goes just 4 innings. 3 hits, 2 runs, 4 walks in the game. He kind of was able to land a slider a little bit later in the outing, but he ends up throwing 81 pitches in 4 innings. And much respect for this coaching staff to realize, hey, we need to go get the guy. And he kind of had 1.5 pitches. He had the fastball, which could, go 98, 99. And then, but that's what happens is guys aren't going to lay off the fastball when you can't spot up the slider. And so Quick is feeling better, as Vaughn says, but those blood blisters take a while to recover from. They truly do. So misses a start and then has an abbreviated start. So we'll see him this weekend. JT Blackwood comes in there in the second inning and gives up 4 hits. And so they get in the bullpen, but a little bit later there, Alabama kind of pieces some things together late, and they end up winning this game. The one game they did win, Alabama scores 2 in the 9th. They go into the 9th with Auburn looking to close this thing out, up 5-4. and Alabama rallies. And again, another one of those late inning situations where Alabama starts feeling like, hey, we are a team of destiny. We are supposed to win these games late, so let's just find a way to get it done. So they go into the rubber match on Sunday, and Bobby Alcock started, and Rob Vaughn tells me he may not start this week. They're going to TBA it, and then we'll kind of see how things go. And that's part of the deal, right? What if Alcock has to throw in relief? Well, last week against Auburn, he lasted a third of an inning. Allowed 4 hits, 4 runs, all earned, didn't strike out anybody, had a hit by pitch. He faced 6 hitters and retired 1 on a flyout. 19 pitches. So maybe something's wrong with Bobby Alcock. I don't know. Rob said that, hey, perhaps he could throw on Sunday. We'll see how things go. They bring in Braylon Myers, and he kind of calms the storm there for a little while. But they ultimately lose the game. And so the reason that I am going so in-depth about last weekend is I think that is more indicative of where they are right now. You got a guy that threw on Fridays that couldn't get people out, and his velo was down from what it normally is. Maybe there's an issue there. You got a Saturday pitcher that missed a start against Oklahoma, abbreviated start against Auburn, didn't factor in the decision. And then now you don't even know who your Sunday guy is going to be. And so I say that because it's important to understand there's some questions with this rotation. That's important to understand. A lot of people think it only happens to us. But here you are, if you're an Alabama baseball fan, you're thinking, hey, we got such a great start. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we go to Auburn. It's bad enough to lose to Auburn, but now all of a sudden I've got questions about all 3 spots. I know Riley Quick, if healthy, is going to go all out. He's a competitor. But he's not 100%, and he hasn't been 100% for a couple weeks here. And so you start thinking about that aspect of it. We have to take advantage of that and get into that bullpen on Friday. We need to eat up some arms because you're managing the whole weekend. Like what you do on Friday often determines what happens on Sunday, as we mentioned last week in our South Carolina preview. And so I think it's a good thing that we're catching them when we are. I do think this is a good Alabama team, but I think this is a team right now that is going to be very reliant on their offense more so than the pitching staff. And they got a good closer, but they don't have what LSU has in middle relief. They just kind of got some dudes. Southern Miss gets ahead in the ballgame on Tuesday 4-0, and then from there Alabama kind of took control and they win the game 10-6. But you kind of look at all this stuff and begin to kind of ask yourself, how many guys pitched? They kind of used it kind of as a bullpen day, I guess. A lot of guys pitched, so all of the guys that pitched on the weekend should certainly be available. On Tuesday will be available. Aiden Finateri started that ball game, and he's kind of been a spot starter for them. But, nobody hurt themselves. A lot of guys just kind of threw an inning or so. So we'll have the full complement of the bullpen available for Alabama. But I think they're going to need it due to the fact that there's just so many question marks about the health and the effectiveness of the starting 3 pitchers. And that's not me talking trash about them. I'm just kind of telling you what I've gathered from talking to sources. And the numbers are the numbers. Now, this Alabama offense, of course, is sitting right there with us, as we mentioned on Wednesday's show. Hit right at 298, right at 300. The big guy is Justin LeBron, right? A lot of people believe he is going to be the National Player of the Year. He certainly could be. Hitting 343 with 14 tanks and 56 RBI. So, kind of like we dealt with Ethan Petrie last week, you got to pitch around Justin LeBron the best you can. I know that Justin Parker will have a good game plan. But Cade Snell, I reached out to Mark Etheridge, talked to him yesterday. He said Cade Snell's really knocking the cover off the baseball right now, really swinging the bat well. He's currently leading them at 393. And then Richie Bonamalo is taking over in center field. And from what I hear, he's been a little bit of a surprise, a pleasant surprise for them. And then, of course, Will Hodo, and it feels like he's been there since the Bear Bryant days, is having a good year, hitting right at 300. But got 8 tanks on the year. So you start thinking about this lineup. You got a handful of guys doing a really good job. Jason Torres hitting 302, and he's a guy that's had a couple of good games against Mississippi State in his career. But outside of that, this is a lineup really. When you get through the fourth and fifth hole hitters, there's not a lot of guys down there that can hurt you. And so what State has to avoid doing is giving up runs to the bottom half of this order. You can't go out there and walk them. You can't go out there and boot the ball around. You can't have a hit by pitch. You got to retire those guys in order. Because you start letting 8, 9 get on all of a sudden, top of the order gets to hit with a man on and your pitcher in a stretch. We have got to control the bottom half of this order. You got to make the guys in the upper half hit your pitch, and you got to get those guys in the bottom half. And I know Justin Parker will have a great game plan, but let's look at kind of SEC, how these guys have done in SEC play. We mentioned Cade Snell, how well he's played of late, hitting 372 in conference. 12 games, 43 at-bats, 16 hits, a couple dingers. As a club, they've hit 14 home runs in SEC play. Justin LeBron tied for the team lead of Will Hodo with 3. LeBron in SEC play hitting 286. Now, some of that's because people are like, you know what, hey, we're going to make you hit our pitch, and if you don't hit our pitch, we're happy to walk you. But he struck out 14 times in SEC play, which is third highest on the club in league play. Now, some of that, too, is the product of hitting as high as he does in the order. But it's not a feast or famine thing, but he is definitely a circle guy. You can't let him beat you because he can. Leads a team with 11 RBI in SEC play. Jason Torres, we mentioned him, hitting 233. That's the thing. After you get through LeBron, it is a really big drop-off in SEC play. As a team, they're only hitting 241. Will Hodo, 191 in league play. But, Bonamalo is hitting 250. And then everything else is really, really pedestrian beneath it. So Snell's 372. Will Pladner, a guy we didn't mention earlier, is hitting 313. And he's been kind of a part-time starter. And then LeBron hitting 286. So things have kind of come back down to earth a bit since they've got into SEC play. And the record reflects that at 7-5. And so a lot of people look at that number next to their name and they think, hey, this is a team that should beat us. I don't know that I agree. And I admit I'm a Mississippi State guy. But when you start working through these numbers and you begin to see what SEC teams have done against them and kind of putting the honest to win on people not named Justin LeBron has been pretty successful. Bryce Fowler is a guy, too, that State kind of recruited a little bit last year. Is in the starting lineup for Alabama, hitting 222. Got one tank. But, again, you just kind of work through the numbers here and you kind of begin to realize, this is a team that is very top-heavy in the lineup. There is not the length in this lineup. I read some things earlier today. People are like, oh, this lineup is great top to bottom. I don't know what you're looking at. I don't. And, again, hitting 241 in league play. It's just, again, and some of that, too, only 2 hitters hitting above 300 in league play against a pitching staff that is one of the best in the country at strikeouts per 9 innings. Looking at pitching, we'll start with conference play, and we'll kind of flip back there. Again, you already talked about we've talked about the starters. Zane Adams in SEC play is 1-1 with an ERA of 6.88. Bobby Alcock, 1-2 with a 6.32 earned run average. Riley Quick is 0-1 with a 5.73 earned run average. As a staff, an ERA of 5.80. Yeah. So pitching's not the strong suit of this staff. But there are some guys on the back end of this bullpen, like Carson Osmer. He's 2-0 with 3 saves and made 5 appearances. And, of course, you don't bring your closer in unless it's a game-winning type situation. But nevertheless, this is a group, I think, we go down there, don't boot the ball around, you got a chance to win. And, again, looking at the pitching numbers here, their opponents, from pitching standpoint, have struck out 107 Crimson Tide hitters in SEC play. Alabama just struck out just 93. Yeah. Braylon Myers has done a good job for them, about a strikeout per in SEC play out of the bullpen. Riley Quick averaging about a strikeout per, even though he's a starter. Bobby Alcock is right at a strikeout per. So those are things we got to put the ball in play. Defensively, things have been a bit of an issue for them too. You think it only happens to us. That's not true. They're a team, obviously, that has a lot of ability, but team fielding percentage about 974. Their opponents 972. And that's in conference play. But looking at overall numbers here on the fielding thing, just to kind of give you, kind of that 30,000 foot look. Got a handful of guys here that have made some errors, no question about it, and it's kind of up and down the order. Made 28 errors overall, and one of the leading guys, with the errors is Justin LeBron. You say, well, he's only made 4, but it's kind of been throughout the order. And Justin LeBron too has an incredible amount of range. There's a lot of plays that he makes that other guys can't, and because there's some balls he can get to that sometimes he's penalized for that. So that's kind of where things stand, with Alabama. So, again, this may be the homer pick. I expect us to go over there and take 2 out of 3. I do. And as noted on Wednesday's show, we have had a great deal of success against Alabama under Chris Lemonis, and even dating back to, the later years of John Cohen. We have done a really good job against them, and I think that's one of those things you can't really discount. Because all of a sudden, if you've been in Alabama for a while and you lose to Mississippi State, every year you start thinking, well, this is what's supposed to happen. Yeah, we have not lost a series against them since 2015. And that was a year that a lot of people thought, hey, John Cohen may be in trouble. 16, he's probably coaching for his job. We have not lost a series since we won the SEC championship in 16. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. And so all of a sudden, if you're Alabama, it's like we feel at times too. It's like there are certain teams we just, for some reason, we always lose to them. The flip side of it is when you successfully defeat them, think about how bad 2022 and 2023 were. We still beat Alabama in those series. And again, Chris Lemonis 12-3 in his tenure at Mississippi State against Alabama. So I do think that we will have a good game plan. I think one of these games will be determined by who makes the big mistake. I think there will be one of those tight games and somebody makes a mistake. Somebody has a bullpen blow up. But I think the key to Mississippi State is you got to play clean defense. But I think you've got to go out there and get on these starting pitchers early. And when guys struggle, and 2 of their guys really struggled last week with control and command and hitability, and then one of their guys struggled kind of coming back from a blood blister, you've got to jump on them. You can't give them anything to feel good about. And if that means working counts and grinding things out, that's what you got to do. But I think we need to be aggressive. When we get pitches that we're looking for, we got to be very aggressive and kind of untie our shoes trying to make contact. And so it'll be an interesting weekend, but I'm picking State to win 2-1. Okay, so it's time for our player to watch this weekend, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair is my friend, your friend, our collective friend in the mortgage industry. You can reach Blair at 601-500-2344. Again, 601, of course I closed it, 500-2344. Blair's got 24 years of experience in the mortgage lending and origination business. He can get you to the closing table when so many others can't. A lot of people out there vying for your business. Your mortgage is too important to entrust to just anybody. Stick with a guy that's got the expertise and know how to get things done. So whether you're looking for your first home, your next home, or your retirement home, Blair Chandler is the name to know. He is a bulldog through and through. He rides the wave of emotion just like you and I, but he doesn't discriminate. Equal opportunity lender. Doesn't matter what school you cheer for. And again, I would share this with anybody just because of the fact that you could find yourself in a bad deal if you choose the wrong loan officer. So reach out to Blair, get that pre-qualification letter. You'll be glad you did. And you want to see your real estate agent get super motivated to get you in a home, you get that pre-qualification letter. They know you got financing then. There's no sitting around wondering. Blair Chandler, closewithblair.com. Our player to watch this weekend is going to be Bryce Chance. Now, Bryce had kind of a difficult weekend at LSU, and he went through a stretch there, kind of starting with the Sunday game at Oklahoma. He goes 0 for 4, 0 for 3. And so then all of a sudden you go to LSU 1 for 5, 1 for 5, 0 for 4. So that made him 2 for 14 on a weekend. And then he goes into Memphis and he doesn't start, comes in late, goes 0 for 1. But since that time, he's 6 for 15. Yeah, and scored 3 runs. He goes 2 for 4 in game 1 against South Carolina, hit a couple balls really hard, 1 for 3, and then 2 for 4, and had a couple doubles in that Sunday game against South Carolina, and then 1 for 4 against UAB. So we're going to pick him as our player to watch this weekend, and part of that too is I think Bryce Chance is one of those guys that is a pretty good mistake hitter. Power numbers, maybe not what you'd expect for a senior, but I don't know that we need him to be the power hitter. I think he can be a table sitter, and also too, in hitting where he hits, really 5 and 6, kind of depending on how the lineup is constructed. He's going to have some RBI opportunities, and it always seems that Bryce is at his best when there are 2 outs. So I'm picking him in what I think is a very important series for Mississippi State. And I think Bryce has done a really good job in center field. And I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if he's going to have the range. But he has proven to be a very good defender in center field, and it takes some time to get used to that. He's also having to kind of help Garrick Fry in left there, a guy that hadn't played a lot of left field, a lot of outfield, kind of help him, track baseballs and things like that. And Garrick's doing his best to pick it up. But let's go with Bryce Chance is our player to watch, sponsored by closewithblair.com. All right, time for today's top 10 list, and we have another request, and it dates back a little bit. And got this request on an email some time ago, and I wanted to kind of get caught up. I told you guys we would do that. But Kalido Guitars, your proud sponsor of the top 10 list. You can visit them at KalidoGuitars.com. That's CALIDO Guitars.com. Or give them a call at 979-297-4733. Now, why Kalido Guitars? Well, number one, they're a great company to work with. In addition to that, it's a Mississippi State company that is owned and operated by Bulldogs. Yeah, how cool is that? Out of Lake Jackson, Texas, about an hour south of Houston, Texas. High-quality instruments with premium sound woods, including spruce and cypress, mahogany, rosewood. You get a superb fit and finish, excellent setup, and it's just ready to go. Easy operation for sure. You get your high-quality instrument, exemplary customer service, and their expert advice. They do a complete inspection and setup of every guitar before they ship. You can also get guitar cases, you get gig bags, you can get your strings, really all of the accessories you need. They sell electric guitars, acoustic guitars, classical guitars, anything you need for your player, including the guitar stand, you can get from Kalido Guitars. And here's some incentive. By being a listener to this show, they're going to give you a 10% discount. Give them promo code BSR. That'll get you 10% off your purchase, free shipping, no sales tax unless you live in the state of Texas, and a 5% donation to the Bulldog Initiative / Bulldog Excellence Fund. So not only are you getting a great instrument from a great company, you're getting it at a discount, and you're also helping Mississippi State Athletics at the same time. We're very proud to partner with Kalido Guitars. We look forward to you and your guitar player in your life, whether it's you or somebody else, having many years of enjoyment of the instrument that you get from Kalido Guitars. So again, be sure and check them out at KalidoGuitars.com. All right, so we got a recommendation, a request from Jordan, and said, Steve, there's been some legendary albums and songs recorded at Muscle Shoals Recording Studio in Alabama. And I thought, well, this is a great time to do it since we're playing Alabama. And many of you are well aware that Muscle Shoals has kind of had a big part in the classic rock sound. So I thought, hey, let's give it a shot. And you know what? You're correct. And, it's interesting. I even left off some Bob Dylan stuff. Bob Dylan recorded there. And a lot of it, too, maybe towards, maybe his renaissance, I guess, in some respects. He converted to Christianity and things kind of changed a little bit. But a lot of Southern rock bands, including Blackfoot, recorded there. There's been a lot of great albums there. Rival Sons recorded an album there. A lot of people just want to go there because of the history. I had a friend recently that shared they took the tour there and said that we would really enjoy it. So maybe that's a road trip we can all take together someday. But here are my top 10 albums recorded at Muscle Shoals. Right? We're going to go back a little bit, but there's a couple modern ones here. But some classic songs for sure. Number 10, Eddie Rabbitt. I loved Eddie Rabbitt when we were kids. I did. I Love a Rainy Night, all that good stuff. He recorded the album Love Line there and had a couple of minor hits off that album. Probably the best song, in my estimation, is Pour Me Another Tequila. It's one of those songs, kind of a blues song, I guess, in some respect. It isn't played in a blues standard by any means, but it is one of those songs that, it's kind of country, but, it's like, another one of those done somebody wrong songs. Number 9, it's John Prine, and I know he is a guy that in recent years, with the emergence of Americana music, has really kind of came into his own, when he passed away recently. I'm trying to remember the date on that. When did John Prine die? Let me look. Let's look here. Let's look. But he's a guy that, in many respects, kind of, told in obscurity for many years. And then next thing you know, he has kind of a reemergence later in his career. Yeah, he died in 2020. Seemed like it was more recent than that. But that's where we are. But we're going to go with the Storm Windows album from the John Prine catalog and a track that he wrote called One Red Rose. Number 8, it's Julian Lennon and the debut album Velat. And it was a top 40 hit for him and kind of rode the wave of many respects of his great father. And it's Too Late for Goodbyes. And that was on the Dick Clark countdown. It seemed like forever. It's much too late for goodbyes. There's a lot of that in life. Number 7, Glenn Frey from the Eagles. His very first solo album was called No Fun Allowed. And yes, it was recorded in Muscle Shoals. And he had a big hit with The One You Love. And you may not remember it from the title, but you put it on. And there's that amazing saxophone intro at the beginning of the song. And all of a sudden, it kind of takes you back, back to the, your childhood. Great, great, great song. Number 6, a more modern band. And what's interesting about this band, we've had them on the top 10 list before. And it was one of those, bands that you don't know you probably should, And it was a band called Cry of Love. And what's interesting about them, they were formed in Raleigh, North Carolina, but Robert Mason was a singer in this band, and now he's currently the singer in Warrant. Yeah, it's true. Also did an album with Lynch Mob, the self-titled album, which was the second album, that always kind of throws me for a loop. When like bands are already established and they release a self-titled album. Yeah, I understand the first one being that. But Cry of Love was great. And I love that album. And the song that always sticks out to me is off the Brother album, their debut album, is Bad Thing. No More of a Bad Thing. Great, great, great song. And it's got kind of a classic rock feel to it. I think you'll dig it. Number 5, and this band, man, it seemed like they were everywhere back in the late 70s. And everybody probably had a favorite song from Dr. Hook. Yeah, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, And if memory serves me correct, we've done a top 10 list of Dr. Hook. I'm sure we have, now that I think about it. But Dr. Hook out of New Jersey, and they didn't really sound like a Jersey band. It's so interesting how all that works. But they released one of their later albums in 78, an album called Pleasure and Pain. Now, the song that we're going to feature today was also on the follow-up, Sometimes You Win. And I don't know the story behind that. It's kind of like when Rat released their debut EP, and it had Back for More on it, and they recorded Out of the Cellar. It may have been a situation here where they changed record companies. Don't know. But a great track called Sharing the Night Together. I think you'll dig that one. You know it already. And it's a song that obviously was part of the big part of their catalog. All right, number 4, and I think everybody will know the rest of these very well. The Rolling Stones recorded Sticky Fingers at Muscle Shoals. Could have gone a lot of different directions here. That's a legendary album. We're going to go with Wild Horses. And there's a live version of Wild Horses on YouTube, a live performance that is incredible. And I think Keith Richards is phenomenal. But I thought Mick's voice comes off so incredibly well. And it's not one of these made-for-TV performances. It just happened to be something that somebody caught on camera. I guess it was a bootleg type thing, but it just kind of shows, really the magic of the Rolling Stones. So Wild Horses, number 4. Number 3, it's Sir Rod Stewart. Now, this was a song that was very controversial when it first came out. And I don't know if you guys maybe remember that, but it was played here in Mississippi, but there were a lot of radio stations around the country that wouldn't play the song. And the song that I'm talking about is not, Do You Think I'm Sexy? It seemed like that thing was played everywhere. But it's a song called Tonight's the Night, released way back in '76 when everybody was a little more conservative. But what's interesting about this single is I think that the controversy actually helped it when it came to record sales. Tonight's the Night, recorded, of course, at Muscle Shoals down in Sheffield, Alabama. But basically, it's about kind of a coming of age for somebody that they... You'll have to do your own research, right? But tonight's the night is like, everything's going to be all right. Somebody's a little bit hesitant to be intimate. And so this is kind of, Rod's way of being a little bit of suggestive. But, it was originally banned by the BBC. Yeah, it's... interesting, but there is some lyrical content in it that is very suggestive. And so as a result, there was some censorship. But there you go. Tonight's the Night, number 3 from Rod Stewart. Number 2, Bob Seger recorded several albums at Muscle Shoals. Several, including the legendary album Night Moves. And we could easily just go with that as our song, Night Moves. And you know what? You guys would have been just as happy with that. But I've elected to go with Rock and Roll Never Forgets. I don't know that we featured that song on the show, so we're going to do that. Bob Seger's album Night Moves, and we're going to rep that album with Rock and Roll Never Forgets. But number 1, could have gone several directions with this one too. The legendary Lynyrd Skynyrd album Street Survivors. And as you guys know, there were 2 covers of this album that were released. And one of them after the plane crash, because of the fact that Steve Gaines looks like his head was on fire, and so they changed the album cover, and it's kind of a collector's item. If you can find it, it's probably worth picking up. But released in '77, the 5th album from Lynyrd Skynyrd, and the last that featured Ronnie Van Zant and the great Alan Collins. It's the only album that Steve Gaines played on. And if you look online, you can find this cover, and there's flames in front of them and behind them, but it appears that Steve Gaines' head is engulfed in flames because of the way that the exposure worked. And so a lot of people just felt that was insensitive, so they changed the cover. And it's a great album. And we're going to go with... we could have gone, again, a lot of different directions. We could have gone with What's Your Name, and you got that right, but we're going to go with That Smell. And Alan Collins and Ronnie Van Zant wrote this based on an experience with Gary Rossington. Gary Rossington, of course, got a little too deep in a jug one night and had a car wreck that nearly killed him. And that became the impetus for this legendary song, That Smell, from Lynyrd Skynyrd. And so I encourage you to check it out. You'll be glad you did. There has been like some reissues of this album. There's like a deluxe edition out there, and I would encourage you to go get that too. There's a lot of some hidden gems and some live performances on that. But anytime that we can talk Skynyrd on the show, we want to. Yeah, it's Mississippi rock and roll, as some people say. But that's your top 10 list for today. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out, let us know. And as today proves, at some point we will get to them. But I appreciate the suggestion and look forward to your suggestions. And if you need a list, we're happy to provide it for you. But again, top 10 albums recorded at Muscle Shoals Studio. Kind of a legendary thing. Cher even recorded an album there too. It was a flop, but Cher recorded an album there too. Yeah, true story. Reach out to Roy Samonti, who has vowed that he'll get caught up on, for those of you that have been missing these recent lists on Spotify, he will get those up for you this weekend. And follow him on X at Dogmatic67. You can find him on Spotify on that same handle, DAWGMATIC 67. And you'll have the opportunity, of course, to just have these lists available to you whenever you want them. How cool is that? And you can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. I want to thank everybody, too, that reached out and said, hey, Steve, there's a problem with the Wednesday episode. And there was, because I mistakenly uploaded the Monday show again. We got it corrected pretty quick, but you guys are quick. Like, as soon as I'm sitting here typing up the Boneyard article and starting to get my phone's going off, get notifications, and it's not a bother to me, trust me. When people say, oh, I hate to bother you. No, it's fine. Go ahead and bother me. I've made a mistake. We got it fixed. So I hope you enjoyed that Wednesday show. I promise that that hasn't happened to me very often, but occasionally it does. But I do appreciate the heads up. I am never offended by those things. I make mistakes. I'm human. And again, I try not to deny that I made them. I just go fix it. And nothing wrong with your phone. It was me, right? All right, let's thank our friends at Campus Bookmart, longtime sponsors of this show. We love Campus Bookmart. Campus Bookmart, the best place to buy Mississippi State merchandise, whether it be apparel, gift ideas, diploma frames, everything you need to decorate your fan cave, you can find at Campus Bookmart. Next time you're in town, go by and see their smiling faces. You'll be glad you did. I get a complimentary hug when I pay. Maybe it's just me. But you never know. They may offer you one too. But it's kind of the mom and pop hometown service, right? That's one thing that I love about it. It's the personalities. You've got people that have been there, for several years. So it's the same names and faces when I go in there for the most part. And I loved the quality of service that I receive at Campus Bookmart. And I shopped there long before they sponsored the show. You should too. If you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR. That's Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Okay, let's take a quick look at the weekend. The availability reports for the SEC are out. And let's just go to ours, and then we'll kind of go back and take a look here. It may be some other things of note, but it's just, Charlie Foster listed as out. Now, Charlie is not out for the year, but he is out for the weekend. Jackson Owen is out. I don't expect him back this year. Gavin Black is out. Not exactly sure what his availability is going to be. And it's so interesting, it's like, he needs to throw more strikes. And then we kind of begin to hear that he's not quite 100%. And he was the guy we expected to be a big part of things this year. JT Schneuer is also out. Not exactly sure what's going on with him. We haven't seen him since the Troy game. But, so that's 4 players that are out. And then Alabama doesn't list anybody is unavailable. So a little more extensive list, I guess you could say, for Mississippi State than we've seen from time to time. That's an important aspect of things, too. And the truth of the matter is, I don't even know the full protocol on this. I don't know if this is a scenario where we have to do certain things, but the significance of this is it's not any regulars. And again, I from what I hear, Charlie Foster is not out for the year. And I know a lot of people have said, well, we hadn't seen him in a while. We just kind of assumed. I think there are some guys on that list maybe you don't see this year. But I do think that you will see Charlie Foster pitch again for Mississippi State this year. One of the things, too, we talked about Florida. We'll see them soon. Guys, Florida is really banged up, and that continues to be the case. Ty Evans, outfielder, been around forever, out. Cade Curlin, the second baseman, out. And then Pierce Coppola out, Frank Melendez out, Matthew Jenkins. Those last three are pitchers. And that's really kind of been the difference in Florida's season. Of course, they're playing Missouri, who's had a bunch of guys out too. Pimentel was the guy they were expected to throw big innings, Shaven Pimentel. And then what do you know? As soon as they get into workouts, he's done for the year. It's incredible how these things begin to kind of just spiral, right? And we've seen it happen with us too. It's like all of a sudden you just kind of feel like you're snake bit. It's not always the case, but injuries happen to everybody in our league, and sometimes you don't realize it until it's a team that we play, that they're dealing with some of the same issues that we are. And I think that's an important thing for everybody to remember, is that we all have problems, every bit of us, and certainly in baseball, there's always going to be people that get a little bit banged up or have some stiffness and just have something they have to work through. But it's not just Mississippi State that has to deal with that. You're only acutely aware of what goes on with your team because that's the team that you follow on a daily basis. And we have some great fans. We really do. We have some people that, anything that happens, they react, good, bad, or indifferent. People are like, oh, I hate this. And it's because of their love for Mississippi State. They want Mississippi State to win big. And when all of a sudden something happens, it's not the woe is me thing that some people suggest. There are some people out there that kind of have a poor old state mentality, but a lot of people, of course, it comes from a good place, and they hate to see bad things or things that are perceived to be negative that happen in Mississippi State. All right, let's take a quick look at the weekend to be, and it's always so interesting. So as we stand here right now, as you sit here, Florida is ahead of Missouri 9-2. Florida scored 6 in the first, and it's a 9-2 ball game basically after 4. They're now into the bottom of 5 down in Gainesville. Liam Peterson so far, 5 innings pitched, 2 runs, and 5 hits. But he's not a guy that they don't have a lot around him. And you look at this Missouri thing, they don't have a lot around him either. And South Carolina right now holds an early lead over Texas A&M 2-1. And once I get done recording this show, that's what I want to go watch, South Carolina and A&M. And, of course, our rooting interest is South Carolina. We want South Carolina to win this because of the fact that the more games they win, the better it is for our RPI. So, I think Florida is going to be in great shape against Missouri. We're rooting for South Carolina, but I think A&M probably takes that series. But things have been so incredibly unpredictable. It's crazy what's happened at College Station this year. All right, looking ahead to Friday's action, Arkansas will visit Georgia. I think this is the series to watch this weekend. And listen, I understand there's some other ranked matchups. But Arkansas, one of the best coached teams in the country. And they've got some guys that are kind of emerging as big bats in this lineup. And that was really the issue last year. They had a bunch of guys that were good players, but they didn't have many guys you say, hey, that's the guy that can carry us for 2 weeks if he gets hot. Of course, the Aloy brothers doing good things. Cam Koziel probably having the best year of his college career. He's already got 7 tanks and 37 RBI. And I don't know that people expected that, to be honest with you. I don't think people expected him. And, of course, he's a guy that we chased a little bit out of the portal. He gets to Arkansas, and, again, putting together a great season. But I like Arkansas to win the series, but things are so weird at Foley because of the fact that it is very much a hitter's park, which is one of the reasons that, Wes goes out there and stocks the portal every year with hitters. Because they just typically want to outscore people. Now, Wes, obviously a great pitching coach, but I think it'll be a split one way or the other. But we're going to take Arkansas. We don't play either of these teams, so they don't really impact us at all, other than in the standings. And I don't think we're going to catch Arkansas. But you know what? If we get some help and we do what we're supposed to do, maybe you can catch Georgia again. Texas and Kentucky. This is another one of those series that I expect a split. But Texas, man, is playing exceptionally well. And I think Texas may be ahead of schedule. And again, that's tribute to Jim Schlossnagle. A lot of people thought, hey, well, this would kind of be a good year, maybe perhaps not a great year. And we talked about that all offseason, that I said, I want to get them early before they kind of get going. Well, they got going right out of the gate. And I think every one of you looks back at that series and say, you know what, we still should have won a game or two. And maybe that's encouraging, but at the same time, it's so dadgum depressing because you realize there was just an opportunity there for us to achieve a big series win early and then kind of ride the wave of their success with our own RPI, but instead we don't get anything from it. If we mentioned Florida, Missouri, of course you know about State, Alabama, South Carolina, and Texas A&M. But LSU is at Auburn, and I think this is going to be interesting, but I'll tell you this, that LSU lineup, after watching them in person, it's one thing to kind of watch on TV, kind of, maybe you're not truly focused on it. You just kind of have the game on, and sometimes you're watching the game, and sometimes it's watching you. But watching them in person and the way that they grind out at bats and spoil pitches, you know what I mean? It's like they're getting a 1-2 count, and they don't get what they want. They just kind of foul it back and extend the at-bat. They run your pitch count up. They're kind of experts at that. They truly are. And I think that, Dickinson kid may be a little bit better than some people told me he was. But Auburn, riding the wave of the big win last week against Alabama, we talked about them in the preseason that they could be a team that could be a little bit of a surprise and a bit of a dark horse. We don't expect them to win the SEC, but they could certainly be a team that they'll be a strong number 2 somewhere. But if they continue to play well, they could be in the hosting discussion, and I think that's what makes this weekend so important. But I like LSU to take the series 2-1. I think Auburn will salvage one. If LSU sweeps Auburn, that's incredibly detrimental. You don't need me to tell you that. Tennessee at Ole Miss, and again, this will be a big one. But I'm eager to see, with a couple of former Ole Miss players, going back to Oxford, what does that mean? Does it fire up Ole Miss even more? And Ole Miss, again, hey, they're 26-7 and 8-4 in the league. We don't play Tennessee. And as I said on Wednesday's show, it wouldn't hurt us to see Ole Miss win one, but I've kind of changed my stance on that. I think I want Tennessee to sweep them. I just don't know they're capable of doing so. Tennessee's a great team, but Tennessee is kind of, as of late, they drop a game to Alabama, battle back, and then, of course, they lose the last 2 games to A&M last week. And I think, obviously, Fisher and Liam and those guys going back in there, I don't know that it'll be a very hospitable crowd. A lot of reaction. And I get it, man. It's like you lose guys to the portal. And more times than not, when State's lost a guy to the portal, it's been a guy looking for playing time. But you don't lose a lot of starters in the portal. And then you lose not just 1, but 2 to a team within your conference, and then you have to play them. It's incredible the scenarios that we're seeing these days. But, I think Tennessee takes a series 2-1, but really rooting for a sweep, to be honest with you. Vanderbilt at Oklahoma, I think this could be a fun one. And I say fun one just because of the fact I think it could go either way. The games are in Norman, and I worry about the depth of that Oklahoma pitching staff, and I have really throughout the year. This could be the last week that Oklahoma is in the top 25 if they lose this thing. But the Vanderbilt offense has been rather pedestrian. And so this is really a toss-up series, but I'd love to see Oklahoma win this thing because we don't play Vanderbilt. But I think Vanderbilt is so competitive that they're going to have a good enough pitching staff to keep these games low scoring. But we're going to pick Oklahoma. And I know that may be a bit of a homer pick, and maybe it's just one of those things I want to happen well to kind of help pad the Mississippi State resume a little bit because I think we're going to need every RPI point we can get. So your rooting interest is Oklahoma. I'm just not sure if Vanderbilt is going to be one of these teams that can sustain where they are. They're 25-8 overall, but 7-5 in the conference. And again, Oklahoma obviously not playing at the level that Texas is. They didn't do it in football, and they didn't do it in basketball, and they're not doing it in baseball either. So Oklahoma having a much more difficult time acclimating to the SEC, but they will. They will. But that's how I see this thing playing out this weekend. and kind of looking at some SEC numbers here too, just because, we touched on a couple things on Wednesday. But, looking at, some individual numbers, I guess. And it's so interesting. You look around here, and there are some guys that are kind of putting some good things together for you. And then, you look at it and say, you know what, hey, when you look at what the rest of the league is doing, you get concerned about some things and encouraged by some other ones. But Mississippi State's leading hitter, Noah Sullivan, is 20th in the SEC with a 360 batting average. And, of course, he's a guy that transferred in from USC Upstate. And a lot of people were kind of concerned. How's he going to translate? And it's taking him a little while to get going. But he is on fire right now for Mississippi State. Really no question about it. And so, we switch over to a couple other things here. You look at our leaders. But if I can navigate this thing, the home runs have been there, I guess, in some respects. But Ace Reese is currently 9th in the league in doubles. Yeah, how about that? Maybe you didn't know. Is that right? That's RBI. The 9th in RBI. It's very interesting how this whole thing is set up. Yeah, so I missed that. I'm sorry. But, home runs, we've hit our share. Ace Reese, 6th in the SEC, tied for 6th. Rylan Zaborski from Georgia and Robbie Burnett from Georgia are tied. And some of that's got to do with, where they play. But Justin LeBron, we talked about him. We'll see him this weekend. Got 14. And then Andrew Fisher, formerly of Ole Miss, now at Tennessee, hitting 13. It's all very interesting to see how it kind of unfolds as we get deeper into this thing. But kind of looking at some team numbers here too. I guess let's look at conference team numbers this week, because that's who we're playing and kind of what we're doing. In SEC play, Mississippi State currently hitting 9th out of 16 teams with a 264 batting average. Alabama is 13th with a 241 batting average. Who's leading the pack, you ask? Arkansas at 361. It's a ridiculous 361. Absolutely ridiculous. And it's not just because of the fact that Arkansas has played, the Louisiana School of Math and Science. They got some guys that can swing it. From a pitching standpoint, we talk about ERA. Mississippi State now down to 10 in SEC play. That's 582. Overall, doing really well. But Alabama's right there with us in SEC play at 580. And so you look at the numbers between State and Alabama, and there's a lot of comparable numbers. But the difference is that Alabama has been able to kind of win those games late when we have not. Mississippi State currently last in the SEC in fielding percentage in SEC games. Alabama's 11th. They've had some issues too, but not quite what we've had. Of course, we've had more strikeouts too, so that's a factor in the calculations as well. But again, just kind of looking at the numbers and looking at Alabama and Mississippi State, there's a lot of similarities between the teams. A lot of similarities. And again, looking at just SEC numbers only, it's been one of these scenarios too where I think State has left so much on the table. They don't track left on base or runners in scoring position, but I would guarantee you we're among the league leaders in that respect. And so that's going to be a key this weekend for sure, is being able to be opportunistic and have an opportunity to put guys in the dugout after touching home rather than having them be picked up by somebody else, whenever it's time for them to take the field because we left them on base. And I think that's one of those things that's kind of plagued us a little bit this year. Now, again, looking at some overall numbers too, State 313 overall, which is, again, right there in the middle of the pack. And you look at earned run average overall, State third. But again, SEC play, you expect everybody to kind of bump up a little bit. And I don't know if these numbers have been updated in a while, to be honest with you. But all of these things are important. At the end of the day, you don't win the game by pen and paper. You win the game, with bat and ball. And we got to go out there and play ball. I think this weekend you play clean and you don't have a meltdown on the mound. I think you're going to feel pretty good about the weekend come Sunday evening. At least that's what we hope. We may go out there and boot it around all weekend. Who knows? But I think there's some things we have to address, kind of like we did with Gowan Sanders. You put Gowan Sanders in there, and I think that's kind of solidified the right side. Everybody has had some challenges at times. It hadn't just been one player. There have been some times in the past where like one player would kill us and everybody else would play well, and we could just put one guy in a lineup and kind of change things. But there have been some times this year we made errors at second, made errors at short, made some at third, not as many, even made a couple at first. And I don't know if that's just a symptom of guys playing too tight, but the reality of it is we have to get it fixed no matter what the root cause is. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle when you're bringing a large group to town. And haven't you always dreamed of that? Just to get everybody together and just be able to eat together, recreate together, and just enjoy being together. It's one thing when everybody comes to town for ball game weekend. There's Airbnbs and hotel rooms and condos all over the county. And you get together and you have dinner, maybe you go to the ball game, maybe you tailgate, but wouldn't it be great just to have a couple days and nights with everybody under one roof? I think it's an opportunity you should explore. We've done it and had a great time. We love it. Stark Vegas Clubhouse was great for us. Plenty of room to spread out. You get that full-service kitchen, the wet bar. I didn't partake. You get the back porch area, the fire pit area, which was great. 6 bedrooms, 2, soon-to-be 3 baths. Everybody has a chance to kind of recreate in that big living room area, watch a little TV, and the dining room area is just kind of off the living room. So if you need to kind of spread out, you can still be part of the conversation. It's great. Just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. If need be, you can do your tailgating right there, not have to lug everything to campus. Yeah, how cool is that? And I tell you this too, guys, we're not getting any younger. Not getting any younger. So the times that we can get together and make some memories together, they're precious. And we need to make those opportunities more frequent. We always say it, we need to get together more often, and then we never do. Be the linchpin in your friend and family group and plan a trip. Now, Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, and when you do, their Facebook page will auto-populate. Also, you'll have the chance to kind of peruse the pictures through there to kind of see the amenities available to you and your guests. In addition to that, too, there's going to be some booking options that pop up. If you want to go Airbnb or VRBO, you certainly can. But if you want to save some money, I can help you there. Book through the Evolve website. Got a promo code for you. It's BSR10. That's Beautiful Steve Robertson 10, BSR10, to get 10% off your stay. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay here in the Golden Triangle, as the rain has come to Starkville tonight. It's always, and let's get it out of the way, right? Got some baseball this weekend we want to play. But, we're going to have rain in the area here for about another hour or so. But, again, looks like it's going to be good weather in Tuscaloosa. And we need some of that. We hadn't had a ton of baseball weather, you know what I mean? But we've had a ton of rain and all kinds of things like that in the area. But, man, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be cool, but it's not going to be cold. And we'll have an opportunity, of course, to give you guys full coverage. Looks like it may be a light jacket day, a blue jean day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we're looking forward to that. I know you guys are as well. I think Jacob Bain will be making a trip over there with me. But give us a chance to talk a little bit about what's going on in the portal, man. It seems like every time we get together, there's new news. And now Mississippi State women's basketball has seen another player enter the portal. We just talked about this on Wednesday. Saying down to 4 players. Well, you know what? Now you're down to 3. Now you're down to 3 returners. And the university announced earlier today that Carissa Richardson has now signed, and she will make the third school, right? Going from Auburn to Ole Miss. But, last year played in 29 games, made a start. Not a big score, but listen, we're going to need some depth on this team. And, Sam Purcell's got his work cut out for him. But, we got a great class coming in, too. And so once those players enroll, it's not like we're having to rebuild everything from the portal, but we got to find some difference makers in that portal. We do. We've got to certainly find a way to get some things going. But, I'm like all of you. I never know what to expect from day to day. And I'm eager, as many of you guys are, to get the portal closed. But just as soon as we do get it closed for basketball, then next thing you know, we got it opening for football. And so we just need to prepare that we're going to be answering questions and asking questions about who's coming and who's going, for the foreseeable future. That's just, it's remarkable to think about that aspect of it. The portal for the college basketball window runs to April 22nd. So we still got 12 days to kind of sweat this thing out. And I guess you look at it if you're a Mississippi State fan, and it's like, hey, at this point, who else could go, right? But the reality of it is a new day and time. We are going to make it. You're going to make it. You're going to be okay. Mississippi State is going to be okay. And as I mentioned this on the Gene Spades message boards earlier, Chris Jans spent a lot of time in junior college coaching. So he's used to having to kind of rebuild a roster annually. And so I think he's maybe a little better equipped when the portal opened. He did a really good job. He's out in New Mexico. He did a really good job kind of putting good rosters together. And, we had to put some things together last year. And you hope, hey, guys, come and stay. Doesn't always work that way. And listen, we are a basketball program that I feel that is in an upswing. And I know many of you feel the same way, and you immediately get concerned when you see all this roster attrition. And, listen, there's some guys that left, for other reasons, and some that needed to leave. That's just kind of how life works sometimes. And now we get a fresh slate in many respects, and you hope you get Hubbard back. You hope that Keyshawn Murphy may decide to come back, but I don't think Chris Jans is kind of sitting around just thinking, oh, woe is me. I don't think that's the case at all. And if you look at what happened yesterday, very significant development on the Mississippi State men's basketball side of things. As Mississippi State picks up literally a big commitment, literally and figuratively, in Quincy Ballard from Wichita State. And if you've watched film of him, and if you haven't, you should. That guy is a freak. A lot of times you see guys, 6'10", 6'11", and they're not especially athletic. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, right? You have some guys that are, maybe they can't elevate without, you know what I'm saying. I mean, there's just some guys out there you look at, and they just kind of lumber up and down the court. That's just not the case with Quincy Ballard. But the film is sick, man. This kid's a freak. I mean, it truly is. Last year he played 33 games, averaging 27.5 minutes a game. Shot 75% from the field. And averaged right at a double-double a game. 10 points, 9 rebounds. And I'm going to be honest with you. Based on what we've seen on film with him, I don't know that we've had anybody like him at the 5 in a long time. I go back and think about Tolu, who did some good things here. He did. But we didn't have good center play this year. And I don't know that we've had a guy we could run some offense through really since Tolu. And, it took him some time to kind of settle in. But to get a veteran player with this kind of resume, I think is significant. So we'll see how things progress with him. But, this is a guy that's done some cool things. And a good building block for Mississippi State. And so I think, if anything, that's one of those things that you look at if you're a Mississippi State Bulldog fan and say, hey, it appears that, we've got a plan in place. We've been executing this for some time, and now we're beginning to kind of reap the benefits of it. So I think it is extremely significant that you get a guy like that. Of course, we still got some other guys out there that we're out there kind of courting from just about every level in that respect. But I think Chris Jans has proven, throughout his career that he can put a roster together and get a team into the postseason. He's certainly done that here. He hadn't had maybe the success once he got to the tournament, but I think that's really just kind of one class away. And again, every year we talk about it, there's one thing, right? Year one, we just didn't have any perimeter shooting. Then you go out and you get, Josh Hubbard to come, and then you think, hey, I'd like to be able to move him to the point. You go out and get Kanye Clary, and you think, hey, this is probably a better scenario for Josh, and it doesn't work out for us. But every year there's been that one thing, and I think it's just a matter of time before Chris Jans puts it together and has a roster that maybe doesn't have like a glaring weak spot on the offensive end. I think, and hopefully this is the year, right? And hopefully you get Hub back and you get some pieces around him that can enable him to have the best, year of his college career. I don't think there's any question that Chris Jans is going to work hard to put a very, very good roster. And again, I think getting Quincy is probably the news we needed, right? We've had so much outgoing traffic. You needed to get something to feel good about. And listen, I get it, man. There's so many people I run into, ball games, home or away, and people say, "Man, Steve, I just want something to feel good about." And I understand that. I do. And sometimes, being a Mississippi State fan can be a tough thing. It's true. And it's easy to say, well, we made tournament on the men's or women's side. That's a rarity, something we can feel positive about. It is. But it always seems like when we have a bad year in football, it just kind of lingers, right? It's like that hangover effect. And then maybe you don't quite get what you want out of basketball or maybe baseball. And it's like, oh, man, And I've read so many people, they're like, I'm just not sure what I'm going to do next year with basketball. Let me encourage you. It's your money, obviously. But I don't think we should be in a scenario where we're not going to renew tickets. I think Chris Jans has earned our respect and our support. Of course, Sam Purcell's got a lot of work to do too, but Sam's got a great high school class coming in, but you're going to need some portal players, obviously, that can be difference makers while these younger players begin to kind of acclimate. Because the Southeastern Conference is a bear. In every sport, at every level, every weekend, every midweek game, there's never any time off. But I just encourage everybody to just kind of hold on to the rope right here and put some trust in these coaches. Because, while some of this news is a surprise to all of us, it's not really a surprise to them. And I think that's important to understand, too, that everybody learns of these things. And it's just like a drip, drip, drip thing, right? It's like, oh, my gosh, DeBrescia Poe enters the portal. Oh, then Medina Okot enters the portal. And it's like every day you turn around, it just seems like something negative is happening. But better days are ahead. And I firmly believe that. And I hope that you will too. And as a guy that's very close to a lot of this stuff, I can tell you that our administration is doing tremendous things to ensure that we are competitive in every avenue. And I had somebody tell me today how the administration is doing everything they can to give Chris Jans everything he needs to win and to be successful. And I know so many of you, that's your favorite sport. And that's what you want to hear, right? But I can tell you this sourcing is absolutely impeccable. And so our fans will never know the steps that we are taking to ensure that we are very, very good in basketball. And so, we'll see what happens next. But I think Chris Jans has earned our trust, that we should say, you know what? I don't really like some of these departures, but I'm going to trust Chris Jans that he can get a comparable or better player to replace these guys. And I think he's proven that he can do that. If you hadn't done so, go to DutyNobleBook.com and you can get signed copies of all of my sports titles. That includes Dogpile, Flim Flam, Alpha Dog, Stark Villains, The Dude, of course, and my memoir, When the Bottom Falls. And I would encourage you to read that too. If you just kind of like a story of redemption, whether you're in recovery or not, I think you'd enjoy that. In addition to that too, you can come float with us over at True West Float Spa of Starkville. The wife running the show over there. You can book online. We've had some football staffers as of late that have come and had a great experience. We hope to have them back. Sure. And when you're thinking about coming to town and planning your weekend, you're like, hey, what are we going to do? Just kind of hang around the condo all weekend? Well, why don't you come float? Be a great experience for you. You can call 662-268-7601. Speak directly to my wife, Dana, or you can book online by downloading the True Rest app. And as mentioned, time is beginning to run out, but 50% off an annual subscription to genespage.com and you get the full complement of the 247 Sports Network, you're not just limited to us. You get to read content of everything that's produced on 247. We do make all those videos for free. All the big room stuff is free. But we do have some VIP content. Told you guys, too, in the first quarter, we had 1,008 stories. 1,008. January 1 through March 31st. And so that's the pace in which we're on. And we manage it on an everyday basis. It's not like you got 2 stories one day and 15 the next. We're going to give you 10 pieces of quality content at a minimum every single day, even on weekends. And we're proud of what we do. We're very passionate about Mississippi State. And we think that you would enjoy having some time with us. You know, there's some holidays coming up. You know, maybe think about that. It's a good Father's Day or Mother's Day gift. Maybe you got a bulldog crazy mom, or maybe it's a gift for the whole family. You know, to be able to get the best coverage of Mississippi State on a daily basis. GenesPage.com. And we got some big news coming for the network here in the months ahead. I'm not going to say much about it, but there is some big things coming that I'm excited about that I think will directly impact us at GenesPage in a very positive manner. So now's a good time to climb on board. Hey, you guys have a great weekend and enjoy the fact that you got an earlier show. And again, it just kind of worked out where I could work this thing out. We're wrapping this thing up here a little after 9 o'clock. Real quickly, just to kind of give you guys, for those of you that don't keep up with this kind of stuff, but the SEC scoreboard, that rain is coming down out there. Let's see, real quickly here. It's so interesting how they make it so fun, like to try to navigate the SEC side. Again, I don't know what happened here. Yeah, so Florida beats Missouri 11-2. No surprise there. And a wild one right now between A&M and South Carolina. It's 7-5 A&M in the 6th inning. So I'm going to upload your show here, and I'm going to go watch the last 3 innings of this ball game. And again, full coverage all throughout the weekend from Tuscaloosa. We will see you guys here back on Monday. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.